J-Bone here, and it is time to recap and review the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix. J-Bone! Let's kick things off with everybody's favorite summarization. Here's the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix in 60 seconds. The starting grid was a Red Bull sandwich because Checo binned it in Q1 and Max somehow gained 3/10 on Alonso in the final sector in Q3. Sainz in P4 really wanted a podium and was trying extra hard to get Ocon in P3 to wear down his softer tires, so hard that he eventually crashed his front wing into Ocon's tires, I guess in an attempt to speed up the process. Logan Sargent, meanwhile, got passed by seemingly the entire grid because everything I'm a fan of in this world is cursed to not do well. Then, near the end of the race, the rain began to fall, and we all watched in horror as Alonso pitted at the exact right time, but put on the exact wrong medium tires instead of inters because his team thought the rain was clearing up when it wasn't. The rain also made Sainz do a Monaco drift to further compound his rough day, and then produced this hilarious image of Lance Stroll off track while Perez rams into Russell. Monaco ended in true Monaco fashion. The drivers who started the race 1-2-3 ended the race 1-2-3. J-Bone! Now, let's dive into all that in a bit more detail. But first, a quick behind-the-scenes update for you. It takes a lot of time and effort from numerous people to make my YouTube and social media content, and YouTube ad dollars and sponsor money are unfortunately not currently covering all of Formula Bone's costs. If you enjoy Formula Bone and want me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, please consider joining my Patreon, where you get a bunch of bonus Formula Bone content for as little as $5 per month that goes directly toward keeping Formula Bone afloat financially. Joining my Patreon is the #1 way that you can support Formula Bone, and the best part is, it's not a donation, you get a bunch of stuff in exchange. Just $5 a month on patreon.com/formulabone gets you 2 additional Patreon exclusive videos per month, access to my weekly written F1 column where I put my most wild and unfiltered takes, and more. And most importantly, your support on Patreon helps make it so that I can keep making Formula 1 content full time. So go check out patreon.com/formulabone now for even more F1 content. Best of all, I'm currently running free trials on all of my Patreon tiers right now, where you can join for free for 1 week so you can try it before you buy it. Thank you so much for your consideration. A link to join my Patreon is in the description of this episode. J-Bone! In my Monaco Grand Preview, I gave you 6 Formula 1 storylines to follow for the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix. Let's see how those shaped up. Your first storyline to follow was Charles Leclerc's Monaco curse and how it would inevitably ruin Leclerc's Monaco weekend this year. And to the surprise of literally nobody, Charles Leclerc's Monaco curse reared its ugly, ugly head once again and ruined his 2023 Monaco race weekend. After qualifying P3, Leclerc was handed a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Lando Norris in Q3, which he 100% did, though it was not Leclerc's fault at all because his race engineer, who you may know from this Billboard #1 hit, forgot to tell Leclerc that Lando Norris was on a flying lap behind him. This turned Leclerc's P3 starting position, which he would have almost certainly turned into a podium like Ocon did, into a P6 starting position, which is where he ended up finishing the race. Again, the Monaco curse is real. The only silver lining here is that this is literally the first time ever that Leclerc has finished a Monaco Grand Prix that was run to the full race distance. So hey, at least that's something, Leclerc fans. Your second storyline to follow was how Fernando Alonso believed he could win the Monaco Grand Prix and how I believed him. And while Fernando Alonso didn't win in Monaco, we are all left wondering the same question. Would Fernando Alonso have won the Monaco Grand Prix had his pit crew put the correct tires on his car? The pivotal moment of the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix came when rain started falling and Max Verstappen stayed out while Fernando Alonso dove into the pit lane to put on new tires. His team elected to put on the dry weather medium tires instead of the wet weather intermediate tires because they thought that the rain would slow down, which it didn't. This ended up ruining Alonso's shot at a win as he had to return to the pit lane the following lap to put on the intermediates. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner does not believe that Alonso initially putting on intermediates would have won him the race, as he said, quote, "It looks like even being 5 or 6 seconds off the pace on the in-lap, we'd have still been 3 or 4 up the road if Alonso had rejoined on inters." However, other sources, such as Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff and F1 content creator Break, who used to be Max's race engineer and who you should all be following because he does great data deep dives, believe that pitting for intermediates would have won Alonso the race. In the end, Alonso finished P2, which was his first P2 finish in almost 9 years, and is still a huge accomplishment, but a P2 is not a P1, and we'll all be left thinking, what if, with a huge Fernando Alonso-sized hole in all of our hearts. And, oh yeah, I have a conspiracy theory about I have a conspiracy theory about Fernando Alonso. I think it's possible that the reason Alonso isn't mad with his team Aston Martin for putting the wrong tires on his car in Monaco, which led to him not winning the race, is because if he got mad at them, it would make his teammate Lance Stroll look bad, and Alonso doesn't want to do that because Lance Stroll is the owner of the Aston Martin team's son. Let me explain. Lance Stroll pitted for intermediate tires 3 laps before Alonso ended up pitting as a guinea pig to test these tires out to see if they were a good choice for Alonso. However, Lance Stroll was driving so terribly that he couldn't get the team any good data as he kept hitting walls, and he actually ended up retiring from the race before Alonso even pitted. Therefore, if Alonso were to get mad at his team, then blame would naturally shift to Lance Stroll for not giving the team good tire data, and that would make Alonso's boss mad, which Alonso wants to avoid because nobody wants a mad boss. I'm just saying, folks. I'm just saying. Just asking questions over here. By the way, let's check in with my brother and producer Jeff, who was at the Monaco Grand Prix. Producer Jeff, radio check.
What a wet and wild race. I mean, heartbreak for Fernando. Charles Leclerc is absolutely cursed.
Wait, did you buy that Ferrari hat at the race? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I actually found it in a trash can. There's a lot more in there if you want one.
I'm good. Your third storyline to follow was how Mercedes were taking a massive risk by adding massive upgrades to their car in Monaco. And folks, that risk paid off as Mercedes had a decent Monaco Grand Prix that was almost a spectacular one. From P5 and P8 on the starting grid, Mercedes ended up P4 and P5, with Lewis Hamilton having the fastest lap of the race. That's nothing to sneeze at. J-Bone! However, George Russell was amazingly on track for a P3 podium finish from P8 on the starting grid, as he benefited from great Mercedes strategy and mistakes from both Alpine and Ferrari. But then, Russell ended up making a mistake of his own by going off in the wet conditions and then rejoining the track unsafely to boot, ruining his podium chance. Still, this was a great weekend for Mercedes considering they were essentially testing out an entirely new car at the trickiest circuit on the calendar. Things could have gone wrong, and they definitely did not. Your fourth storyline to follow was how rainy weather would affect the Monaco Grand Prix, and oh man, it sure did. Among other things, like causing cars to go off constantly and causing strategy chaos, it namely gave Alonso an opportunity to win the Grand Prix that, unfortunately, was not capitalized upon by Aston Martin. Sad. On the plus side, the rain did make the Monaco Grand Prix arguably the most exciting race of the season thus far, though I don't know if that says more about how exciting this race was or how average some of the previous races have been. Your next storyline to follow was whether or not there would be bad blood between Max Verstappen and Checo Perez in Monaco. And there certainly was not, but that is just because, quite literally, the entire grid was between Max and Checo after Checo binned it in Q1, so there was no chance of them fighting each other. Now, I like to think that Checo got confused and thought it was Q3, so he was binning it intentionally, since that led to him winning the race last season. Allegedly, of course, this is not financial advice. My Monaco recap is sponsored by Bird Dogs, and listen up because I have a new code. It is code BONE at birddogs.com/bone for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Bird Dogs makes the best shorts and pants you will ever try on, and I am not just saying that because they are paying me to. I, J-Bone, legitimately wear Bird Dogs at least 4 days per week because they look great, feel even better, and because I literally can do anything in them. I can chill, I can bike, I can golf, I can work out, I can go on a road trip, I can even swim in them, okay? Look, I'm wearing a pair of Bird Dogs right now. I don't swim in these because they're joggers. That'd be kind of interesting, but I'm wearing them, see? I love them. Aren't they beautiful? My favorite thing about bird dogs is that they come with a super soft built-in liner that eliminates the need to wear underwear, which I think is the best invention of all time. It cuts down on laundry, it cuts down on discomfort. You need to be wearing bird dogs, and I've got you covered with a special deal. Go to birddogs.com/bone and enter promo code BONE for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. The tumbler is one of those super premium thermos things that keeps your drinks either hot or cold. Yeti sells them for like $40, and you get yours for free with your Bird Dogs order. That's birddogs.com/bone, promo code BONE for a free tumbler with your order. J-Bone! Your final storyline to follow was about how this past Sunday is the best motorsport day of the year. And it definitely was, even though NASCAR's Coca-Cola 600 sadly did not run because of rain and instead was moved to Monday. I say that it still was because the Monaco Grand Prix was probably the best F1 race thus far this season, and the Indy 500 was absolutely insane. IndyCar just had its own version of the 2021 Max Lewis Abu Dhabi F1 controversy at the Indy 500. Let me explain. The Indy 500 was red flagged with just 2 laps remaining, with reigning champion Marcus Ericsson in P1 and Joseph Newgarden in P2. Under normal circumstances, this would have meant the race was over with Ericsson as the winner, because a normal Indy 500 race restart is a rolling restart after 2 formation laps, meaning you'd need 3 laps remaining, not 2, for the race to get going again. However, in the name of the spectacle, the race stewards made the controversial decision to remove one of the 2 formation laps. That would allow them to restart the race, which would now end with a 1-lap shootout in a series of events so similar to Abu Dhabi 2021 that it is crazy. Marcus Ericsson would go on to be passed by Joseph Newgarden during this 1 lap, and Newgarden is now your Indy 500 champion. Ericsson, as the Hamilton in this situation, was obviously very upset after the race as he felt he should have won and had the win unfairly taken away from him. Now, this is ironic considering what Marcus Ericsson tweeted after Max won Abu Dhabi 2021, quote, "Best F1 season ever, best sport season ever. That finish to the race just sums this crazy season up perfectly. You can't make this stuff up. Unbelievable. Congrats, Max Verstappen." End quote. What a crazy story. Next up, here are my Monaco Grand Prix shoutouts and get-outs. Shout out to Ocon for finishing on the Monaco podium. SD Bestie's P3 made him the first Frenchman on the Monaco podium since 1996 and gave Alpine its first podium finish since Alonso's P3 in Qatar in 2021. Get out to Haas for ruining what would have totally been a 1-2 finish by forgetting to make Hülkenberg serve a penalty, which gave him another penalty, and also for keeping Magnussen out on dry tires in the wet for way too long. Yes, I know, I have Haas delusion syndrome, shut up. Shout out to McLaren for getting a double points finish. McLaren have now scored points in 3 out of the last 4 races after going pointsless through the first 2 races, so it looks like things are moving in the right direction for them. Hopefully, I feel like I just jinxed it. Get out to both Victor Martins and F2 Race Control. The near miss that happened in Monaco's F2 feature race, where rookie driver Victor Martins ignored double-waved yellows and almost hit a fire marshal, was absolutely terrifying and should not have happened because A, Martins should have been driving way slower, and B, Race Control should never put a human being on track at such a narrow circuit with blind corners unless a red flag is being waved. Next up, here's how my 3 bona fide race predictions fared at the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix. My first race prediction was that Fernando Alonso would win the Monaco Grand Prix, and he almost did, except they put the medium tires on him instead of the intermediates, which ruined his chance. My second race prediction was that Charles Leclerc would finish on the podium at his home Grand Prix in Monaco, and he almost did, considering he qualified P3, except he then got that 3-place grid penalty in qualifying due to General Ferrari incompetence, which took him out of contention. General Ferrari incompetence? My third race prediction was that Lando Norris would finish in the points, and ding ding, J-Bone got that one right. J-Bone! Now, you also may remember that I predicted the Monaco Grand Prix's top 5 finishers, and my predictions were as follows. P5, Carlos Sainz. P4, Checo Perez. P3, Charles Leclerc. P2, Max Verstappen. P1, Fernando Alonso. And how my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ended up was a 8, 16, 6, 1, 2. It's like lottery numbers. But folks, I'm going to get all my predictions right in Spain this weekend, yada, 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 whatever. J-Bone! And next up, it is time to respond to some Monaco Grand Prix themed voicemails left on the Bone phone. If you want your voicemail featured on the Bone phone, simply call 1-833-200-0966 and leave a message, or Head to the Formula Bone Discord and submit a voice memo in the Bone Phone Submissions channel. A Discord invite link is in the description of this episode. You should join the Discord even if you don't plan on submitting a call, because my Discord is tight. Here's the first call.
Hey J-Bone, this is Hunter Moser from Ohio, and I was wondering, my friend keeps telling me I have this disease called, Haas delusion syndrome, but honestly, if anyone's delusional, it's them. They clearly do not see that Haas is going to win every race this season, forever. They are the best F1 team, and I don't know how I can convince them of that. It's honestly sad how delusional they are, and not me.
You, sir, have an extremely severe case of Haas delusion syndrome and need to seek the help of a medical professional. I am not going to platform your Haas delusion syndrome any longer, and thus will now be moving on to the next call.
Hey J-Bone, do you think if Sergio Perez has another really bad weekend, can Alonso overtake him in the Drivers' Championship?
After Monaco, Fernando Alonso is now just 12 points behind Checo Perez in the World Drivers' Championship. Unfortunately for Fernando, however, Monaco is a fluky circuit, and the next 8 Grand Prix circuits in a row favor the Red Bull rocket ship over the Aston Martin car. I think this weekend in Spain is probably the only chance Fernando Alonso has all season to take P2 in the driver's standings away from Checo, even if it's just for one race. And for that to happen, Alonso needs to drive flawlessly and also have Checo have a bad or terrible weekend. But it is Alonso's home Grand Prix and the site of his most recent win, so anything can happen, folks. Speaking of Fernando Alonso, you aren't a true believer in El Plan unless you buy my Fernando Alonso merch. This shirt that's available in 9 colors and lets the world know your 2 favorite drivers are Fernando and Alonso. A link to get yours is in the description. J-Bone! Next call.
Hi J-Bone, what do you think about the rumors about Hamilton moving to Ferrari? I think it will be a great move. J-Bone!
The Hamilton to Ferrari rumor was pretty much entirely put to rest this past weekend in Monaco, where it was all but confirmed Lewis would be extending his contract with Mercedes. After seeing Ferrari on the downswing and Mercedes on the upswing, I really can't think of a single reason why Lewis would ever make this move if he had the option to stay at Mercedes, which it looks like he does. Subscribe now so that I can see you back here very soon for my Spanish Grand Preview, where I'll give you everything you need to know before you watch the Spanish Grand Prix, including my bona fide race predictions. Special shout out to my top Patreon supporters, Kolky, @RatedBookie, and Glow. Until next time, folks, J-Bone! J-Bone!